I joined the Chicago Temple in 1972, just before Janmashtami and Vyas Puja, knowing that the devotees were all going to pile in a van and go to the big festival in New Vrindavan. They just buzzed me up, and I went there, and we were just, all ecstatic. You're a new devotee, you were ecstatic. Prabhupada's coming. And I remember when Srila Prabhupada pulled up in the car and got out, I could feel it. It felt like in every molecule of my body, I could feel that I had been traveling all over the material universe, the higher planets, the middle planets, the lower planets, for millions and millions of lifetimes. I could just feel it. It wasn't like theoretical. I could feel it. And there he was. There he was. This was my ticket out. This was the person. My sojourn in the material world was over. And I can remember just being in complete ecstasy. My hairs were standing on end, and I was just crying like anything. And I can't even remember if I paid my obeisances. I was so stunned and bowled over, and just a feeling, such a great feeling of relief that my sojourn in the material world was over. All I had to do was follow Srila Prabhupada, and everything had been taken care of. So the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada in Hawaii, the Pujari had really done a great job decorating the deities. There were banana leaves and tulsi, mounds of tulsi and flowers. And so when Srila Prabhupada started the lecture, he commented how beautiful the deities looked and how wonderful a job the Pujari had done. And he said, you must do this. You must decorate the deities very nicely. And by decorating the deities, you are decorating your heart. And then he said, and if you neglect to decorate the deities, then you will be neglecting to decorate your heart. And then your heart would become black. And he goes, and that is why so many have left. And everybody was, because he said it in a very grave voice. First it was very ecstatic, and that is why so many have left. And everybody got like nervous and stuff. So I arrived in Hawaii around Gaur Purnima time, and we knew Srila Prabhupada was coming in May. So I immediately set out to learn everything I could possibly learn about Hawaii, knowing that when Prabhupada would come, he would regularly ask devotees questions about the place he was visiting. So I learned all about Hawaii's history, the hotels, the beaches, you name it, I knew it. I was Mr. Hawaii. So I was learning everything I could, and I was just like knowing that one day I'll be on the walk with Prabhupada, and he'll ask a question, and I'll just be able to step right up and go, well, Prabhupada, that was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So one day we were walking on Waikiki Beach, and I was walking right behind Srila Prabhupada in his actual footsteps, because they would leave an impression in the sand, and I was thinking, you don't get an opportunity like this in millions of lifetimes. So I was just very carefully walking. I looked to see exactly where his footprint was, and I'd walk right in it, walking and walking. And I'm thinking, Prabhupada's going to ask a question, I'm going to know the answer. Prabhupada's going to ask a question, I'm going to know the answer. I'm going to be the man, right? And then all of a sudden, Srila Prabhupada stopped, and he turned right around, and he was looking right at me. He was very close. I mean, his eyes and everything were looking. And without looking, he pointed like this. He goes, what is that? And I looked over, and I had no idea what it was. I was shaking, and I felt about 1 inch tall, and I was on the hellish planets, and my entire life was ruined. And like in the distance, it was like far away practically, because I wasn't there practically. I could hear somebody going, Prabhupada, that's a device that measures how far a person has walked. And Prabhupada was still looking at me. He says, so they should make a device that tells how far death is, but that they cannot do. And then he finished looking at me, and he turned around and kept walking. And I think by then I had like recovered a little, and my pride had been very completely eliminated. My pride had been very eliminated, and I was actually in ecstasy, thinking Prabhupada had mystic powers. He knew everything I was thinking. He knew I learned all about Hawaii. He knew I wanted him to ask a question, and he knew I thought I was going to impress him. So I understood you don't want to show off in front of your spiritual master. So I was really impressed with Prabhupada's mystic powers, the philosophy and his teachings, and also his sense of humor. That I had been chastised, but It was humorous. And at the same time, it instructed all the devotees about how, you can't measure how far death is. And that's the big thing that, that you should know, is how far death is at any moment. And then also Prabhupada said that the dresser and the cleanser are the same. He said it didn't matter. One shouldn't think that because he's dressing the deity or because he's a manager, he's more important than the person who's actually washing the pots or cleaning the temple. He said the dresser and the cleanser, they are the same. We're all serving Krishna, and Krishna sees every devotee's service equally. Oh, one thing that Prabhupada said about to Sudama Maharaj, this was before I got to Hawaii, but the devotees always it was like a big quote for the devotees, was that Prabhupada had told Sudama Maharaj about the devotees could maintain their health by going swimming every day in the ocean. And Sudama Maharaj freaked out because that would mean the devotees would go swimming all day. They wouldn't just take a dip and come out. They would go swimming all day, and he was like, Prabhupada, no. So Prabhupada said, okay, but at least once a week they must go swimming. So it was very joyful in Hawaii. It was very, very pleasant. But as I said, Prabhupada regularly tried to keep us, remind us of we're still in the material world even though we're on a heavenly planet, and to pay attention to doing our service and not get too distracted by the heavenly pleasures. I was putting on the garland regularly on Prabhupada. It seemed like nobody caught on that, it looked, because I just knew from the first day Paramahansa Swami let me put it on that there doesn't seem to be a real structure here. So I would regularly make sure I got the garland and put it on Prabhupada. And nobody said anything. Nobody said, who do you think, So then a devotee was telling me this ecstatic story, how he made the sandalwood paste up. And how he ground it, and he added camphor to make it cooling, and added saffron so it would be a nice orange color. And then he told me how he put it on. So okay, exactly. I had him tell me it. Okay, you do this, and then you add the saffron, and then you add the camphor. Okay, great. And then how you put it on, it was he said, duh. So I was ready, and I was very proud. I'd been putting the garland on, and I was thinking, now I'm putting the sandalwood paste on. I was very proud of my position. I'm putting the sandalwood paste on Prabhupada. So I went and I worked, I did it diligently. Put the right amount of camphor in so it was cooling, and made it the right consistency so it wouldn't drip, right? And so I had it ready, and I put it on Prabhupada. And Prabhupada got a cross look in his face. And he just turned his head, and he didn't say anything. But I understood that it was supposed to be put on his temples. That was more important than the forehead. So then I was shaking, but somehow or another I got it on Prabhupada's temples. And then I paid my obeisances. And while I was down there, I was again thinking, my pride had been squished. I was on the hellish planets. But as I was getting up, I was actually in complete ecstasy that I had been chastised by my spiritual master. And that was mercy too. Not just praising you was mercy, but even the chastisement was great mercy, and that my pride had actually been curbed, and I was actually in ecstasy that I had been chastised, and I never get an ecstasy if I'm chastised. So it was instructive, and it was sweet. I guess either because I was a Sankirtan leader, I had distributed more books than anybody. They were going to let me bathe Srila Prabhupada's feet. And I remember Prabhupada's feet were actually swollen. And I felt like, Prabhupada, I could feel that Prabhupada had gone through so many. It wasn't like he was touring around the world enjoying. Prabhupada was giving his life so that we would have life in Krishna consciousness. And I also remember while I was pouring it, I was just in complete ecstasy, and somebody behind me goes, hurry up, hurry up. And I got all nervous, and I hurried up. And after that, anytime anybody said anything, I just totally was oblivious to whatever they were saying. It was like, this will only happen once, twice, 3 times in your life that you could get this close to Prabhupada and just get this mercy and forget what anybody said. I remember one time I had made the sandalwood paste up, and I was ready to put it on Prabhupada, and Tamal Krishna came, and he took it from me, and he put the sandalwood paste on Prabhupada. And I was thinking, who does he think he is? I made that up. So I remember the next day, it was, it just became transcendental rascals to get Prabhupada's mercy. I had my big chadar on, and I had the sandalwood paste and flour underneath, and I was just standing there. And I saw Tamal, and he looked all over. He was looking all over for the sandalwood paste. And finally he gave up, and he offered Prabhupada a flower, and he paid his obeisances. Boom, my chadar went off. I had the sandalwood paste, and I put it on Prabhupada. And I remember Prabhupada was smiling. I think he knew what I did. And I was really attached to that chadar because when we were in India with Srila Prabhupada, we went to Haridas Thakur's Bhajan Kutir or something. And while we were there, somebody came, I think it was Guru Das, came out and said, Prabhupada needs something to sit on. Prabhupada needs something to sit on. And that chadar came off, and it was like, here. And then later they gave it back to me, and I was thinking, this is the chadar Prabhupada sat on. And I can't remember exactly what Prabhupada said in that. Oh, actually, I do remember. Prabhupada gave the lecture in another language, in Indian language. And we had no clue as to what he was saying. But I remember sitting right at Prabhupada's feet and looking at Prabhupada's feet and looking up at Prabhupada talk and thinking, well, I'm getting purified because I'm listening, it's going in and I'm being purified even though I don't understand anything Prabhupada is saying. And that was also very sweet, just to be, because usually you didn't get that close in India to Prabhupada. That time I guess I was able to get close and get some personal service in there. But in Hawaii it was very intimate. You could get close. And you could pull tricks like that, hide the sandalwood paste from Tamal Krishna, put it on yourself. I was a Sankirtan leader, so that meant I kept the book room. It was supposed to be kept in order, and I'm a very sloppy person. So I knew where the books were, but as far as really having it straightened out and organized, and there are empty boxes around and those yellow things that get wrapped around them. And so it was kind of messy, and then one day we heard Prabhupada's doing an inspection of the temple, and I was like, oh no! And I ran to the book room. I didn't even go on the first part of the inspection because I was like, oh no! So I got in there and I'm stacking books up and busting boxes up and throwing stuff in the trash, and then I started sweeping, so it was all clean. And I just got done sweeping when Prabhupada got to the door, and he was looking at me. And I didn't know. I don't even think I paid my obeisances. I may or may not have. All I remember was Prabhupada was looking at me, and I was frozen. And then I heard Prabhupada asking, "What is this?" And Shruti Kiri, "Oh, this is the book room, Srila Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada looked at me. And this time it was eye contact, and I could understand that Prabhupada knew that I had just finished cleaning that book room, and that regularly it was a mess, and those were his books, and that his book room should not be a mess. And after that, I pretty much firmly resolved that the book room would always be clean and it would always be straightened out, so that if Prabhupada was going on a walk, I'd be all right. I could actually take the walk with him and not have to run to the book room and be like, oh no! I remember they used to say, there's only one question you should ask the spiritual master, and that's, how may I serve you? And I figured, well, I already knew how I was supposed to serve him, distributing books, taking care of the temple, cleaning, cooking. There was what do I need to ask him? How may I serve you? So, but when I was in Chicago, I had been on Guru Kripa's party, and they used to do Ganesh worship. So I came back, and I was doing I wanted to do Ganesh worship, and I told all the Sankirtan devotees, they're collecting so much money there by doing Ganesh puja, right? And so the devotees all got into it. The temple president found out about it, told us we had to stop. We didn't listen to him. They got the GBC involved. We said, oh, who's the GBC? He doesn't know anything. The Swamis are doing it. So that was the first question I asked Srila Prabhupada was, could I do Ganesh puja? And I didn't mention anything about money. I just mentioned it says in the Nectar Devotion that you should worship Ganesh, and things like that. And this is how the mantras they used and stuff. And could we do that? And then Prabhupada wrote back, my dear sons, because all the Sankirtan devotees signed it. So Prabhupada wrote back, my dear sons, please accept my blessings. And I remember when we were sitting around reading it, we were all like, that's it, our lives are perfect. Prabhupada's given us his blessings. And then as we read further, Prabhupada was talking about how Krishna says just to worship him, and you're proposing to worship a demigod. Well, why is this? Krishna says you're less intelligent if you do this, right? And we wouldn't have taken that from anyone. But we were just in ecstasy. Prabhupada told us that. And then Prabhupada went on to say, but still, if you're attached to worshiping Ganesh, and it's I got the letter, and it says, and it says, for huge amounts of Lakshmi, and then penciled in, to serve Krishna, then you please send me $100,000 a month and not a single farthing less. So I thought that was a very nice instruction, and we were all like, we stopped our Ganesh puja and went out on Sankirtan, and nobody else could have told us that. But Prabhupada told us that, and we were in ecstasy. And I had heard another time Prabhupada had a unique ability to do that, to chastise people or point out your folly or your lowness or whatever, and because it came from Prabhupada and the way he said it, you didn't take any offense. You just felt like, oh, okay. And they said one time Prabhupada was walking in Hawaii, and he had said this before, that because the people ate so many pigs, they were looking like pigs. And they were walking by some Hawaiians when they said it. And the people heard it. And so they were like, they wanted to talk to Prabhupada about that. And then Prabhupada started talking to them about how they're the soul and they're not their body. And as he was talking to them, they were happy. And they walked away, and they realized Prabhupada wasn't making an offense about them. They were totally enveloped in Prabhupada's love and his spiritual instruction that you're not the body, and this is just, the bodies look different. Different people, you have different kinds of bodies. And they walked away quite happy. They weren't all offended, and we were thinking, only Prabhupada can do things like this. And we said anything like that, it'd be a riot. One time he actually, as far as I remember, he said it both times he was in Hawaii. He talked about the surfers. And he would go, you say surfer, I say sufferer. And every devotee was a surfer. Tell me, Prabhupada looked right at him when he said it. And which I kind of got a kick out of, because I was thinking, well, how many surfers there were? And they all say it. Prabhupada was looking right at him when he said that. You say surfer, I say sufferer. And I know on the Big Island, they used to have a farm on the Big Island. And Prabhupada asked the devotees there, he said, what grows easily here? And they said, Prabhupada, we can grow cauliflower and broccoli and this and that. And they started telling him all the things they could grow. And Prabhupada said, no. What grows without any work? And devotees said, well, corn and guavas, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, very good. Guava juice prasadam for breakfast, corn chapatis for lunch, business finished, rest of the time chant Hare Krishna. I don't think any devotees thought they could do that. Another time Prabhupada told the devotees that they could live on 2 dabs a day. He told us that the dabs were very healthy and that you could actually live on 2 dabs a day. Of course, I don't think anybody tried to do that either. But Prabhupada, it was fun because Prabhupada would make comments that really applied to being right there, as well as instructive things. And then he also told us, because the geckos would make their sound, and Prabhupada said, oh, when you hear this, you know the truth is being spoken. So we got all kinds, in Hawaii, we got all kinds of little goodies like that. Little things that we thought were like special to Hawaii and special to the islands and the devotees there. Also, Prabhupada, he actually finished the 5th canto and the 7th canto in Hawaii, and he started the 6th canto and he started the 8th canto. And he, I can't remember which Bhagavatams it's in, but when he finished it, he said, by the mercy of Shishi Panchatattva, and he listed the devotees' names. I mean, the Panchatattva's names. And then in the 8th canto, he starts out talking about how that he has faithfully been trying to publish these books on the order of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he asked all the devotees to help him continue to publish more and more volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that was all done in Hawaii, and we were always really proud, thinking that Prabhupada translates here more than anywhere else in the world. Prabhupada loves coming to Hawaii. So we felt very special in Hawaii, and Prabhupada would make us feel like that. I think he really did like Hawaii, and I think the devotees reciprocated with that mood, and just whatever we could do to make it like, special for Prabhupada what we would do. I do remember, though, Prabhupada in Hawaii, one time he was talking about the devotees and the regulated principles. And because the devotees in Hawaii were especially notorious for falling down. They used to call it a sannyasi graveyard. And Prabhupada had actually said at one point, Hawaii was perfect for spiritual life. And then he goes, also material life. So Prabhupada would really, I think on a regular basis, he would kind of like push home the point. And one time he was talking about the regulated principles. And he said, and they were talking like, some people are chanting, but they don't follow the regulated principles. And he said, yeah, maybe that they're, he said they may have to chant for 700 lifetimes before they can follow the regulated principles. And I remember thinking, well, I don't want to have to do that. I better get serious here. I think regularly you hear when he got to a temple, Prabhupada would ask, is everything okay or is everything all right? And I remember, temples weren't, as much as we were in ecstasy serving Srila Prabhupada, we were still very immature, young people, and there were always disagreements and fights and craziness and stuff. But when Prabhupada would ask that question, just by his saying, is everything all right? Immediately, it would just dissipate anything. Even if you've just been in a big fight or the temple commander was on your case, anything you had been through, it was all like, it was gone. It was completely gone. And yeah, everything's all right. Everything's okay. And also I remember feeling that Prabhupada wasn't just saying that. He actually meant it. He was concerned. He wanted to know that we were all right. I really could feel that Prabhupada, when he said that, I could feel that Prabhupada really cared about us. He really loved us, and he really appreciated what we were doing for him. When he said that, you could feel the love. And like I said, when he said, is everything all right? It was all right.
Je anilo premadana koruna prachu